All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Advanced Chinese Astrology, and I am happy to bring it to you for free. So, we're going to go over foundational topics in Chinese astrology, as well as dissecting them into 4 different essays. So, I did this with Vedic astrology as well, Jyotish, and I just submitted those in 4 individual videos, but now I'm thinking it's better to just have longer videos on the channel. At least over an hour long minimum for each video, because that's how the algorithm works. So I am going to do so. So, on the celestial science of the Middle Kingdom, the first essay is Digital Archiving of Imperial Astrological Records Spanning 2,500 Years, a Computational Approach to Preserving the Celestial Mandate. And we start out with the Imperial Observatory and the Mandate of Heaven. So, for more than 2 millennia, the courts of China maintained an unbroken tradition of celestial observation and interpretation that stands as one of the most remarkable institutional continuities in human history. The imperial astrologers, officials of the Qin Tianjin, these were not marginal figures but central actors in the cosmic drama of governance, charged with reading the heavens for signs of the mandate of heaven's continued favor. Their records, spanning from the Warring States period through the Qing dynasty, constitute an unparalleled archive of human observation of the cosmos, preserved through dynastic changes, foreign invasions, and technological revolutions. Now, this essay specifically examines the monumental task of digitally archiving these imperial astrological records spanning more than 2,500 years of continuous observation. We explore the historical context of these records, the technical challenges of their preservation, the computational methods being developed for their analysis, and the profound implications of this work for our understanding of both Chinese history and the history of astronomy worldwide. So here's the historical depth of Chinese celestial records, starting with the Warring States origins. So the foundations of Chinese imperial astrology were laid during the Warring States period, 475 through 221 BCE, a time of philosophical ferment and political fragmentation. It was during this era that the legendary astrologer Shai Shen is said to have compiled a star catalog, known as the Star Manual of Master Shai. Recent computational analysis by astronomers at the Chinese National Astronomical Observatories has suggested that portions of this catalog date to approximately 355 BCE, making it potentially the oldest surviving star catalog in the world, predating the work of the Greek astronomer Hipparchus by more than 2 centuries. The Shai Shen catalog is remarkable not merely for its antiquity but for its sophistication. It specified star positions using spherical coordinates, much like latitude and longitude specify points on Earth's surface, and this required a conceptual understanding of celestial geometry that was, until recently, thought to have developed only with the invention of the armillary sphere in the 1st century BCE. The computational dating of these coordinates through analysis of precession, the 26,000-year wobble of Earth's axis, has opened new debates about the early development of Chinese astronomical instrumentation. The institutional continuity, the unification of China under the Qin and Han dynasties, established a pattern that would persist for 2 millennia. A centralized astronomical bureau responsible for calendar calculation, celestial observation, and astrological interpretation, the Da Tang Kuaiyan Zanjing, Kaiyan era astrological classic, compiled around 718 through 724 CE under the leadership of Gautama Siddha, an astronomer of Indian descent working at the Tang court, represents one of the great monuments of this tradition. This encyclopedia of astrology preserved not only contemporary knowledge, but also fragments of earlier works, that would otherwise have been lost. The Song, Yuan, Ming, and Qing dynasties each maintained and expanded these records. The Lei Bian Lai Fa Tong Shu Da Quan comprehensive calendar arranged by subject matter compiled during the Ming dynasty by Xiang Zhongli 1409 through 1482 combined multiple earlier works into a standardized reference. Such texts serve both practical and ideological functions. They ensure the correct calculation of the calendar, essential for agricultural scheduling and ritual observance, and provided the interpretive framework for understanding celestial omens. The Qing Bureau and its hereditary families. By the Qing dynasty, 1644 through 1912, the Astronomical Bureau had evolved into a complex institution with hereditary families of astronomers maintaining specialized knowledge across generations. Ping Ying Chang's study of the Bureau from 1620 to 1850 reveals the intricate social dynamics of these lineages. Families such as the Hes maintained their positions through multiple reigns, navigating the tensions between traditional Chinese methods and the new techniques introduced by Jesuit astronomers. The Qing Bureau faced unprecedented challenges: the Kangxi calendar dispute, the failure to correctly predict the solar eclipse of 1730, and the gradual decline of missionary influence. Yet through all these challenges, the records accumulated. Each observation, each prediction, each interpretation was preserved in the imperial archives, creating a continuous record of humanity's engagement with the heavens that has no parallel elsewhere in the world. All right, let's observe the digital archiving challenge, scale and fragmentation. So the sheer scale of the imperial astrological records presents formidable challenges for digital archiving. Millions of pages of manuscripts are dispersed across institutions in China, Taiwan, Japan, and the West. Many exist only in unique copies, some reportedly found in remarkable circumstances, such as the Shaishen manuscripts that have been discovered in the belly of a Buddha statue approximately 400 years ago. The physical condition of these materials varies enormously. Some are well-preserved imperial editions on high-quality paper. Others are fragile manuscripts on deteriorating materials. The Shui manuscripts digitized by Sun Yat-sen University, for example, represent a 19th-20th century tradition of vernacular astrological texts written on locally produced cotton paper, bound with cotton thread, and occasionally protected with cloth covers. These materials require careful handling and specialized digitization techniques. Computational approaches to dating and authentication. So one of the most exciting developments in the digital archiving of Chinese astrological records is the application of computational methods to questions of dating and authentication. The work of Boiliang He and Yongheng Zhao at the Chinese National Astronomical Observatories exemplifies this approach. Their method employs the Hao transformation, an analytical technique originally developed for image processing to analyze historical star coordinates. The algorithm ingests the coordinates, attempts to rule out data points that may have been corrupted by copying errors over centuries, and then estimates the statistical best fit to where the celestial North Pole must have been when the coordinates were measured. This infrared pole position is then translated back into a date. The application of this method to the Shaishen catalog produced striking results. Some star measurements appeared to have been updated around 125 CE, while others dated back to approximately 355 BCE, aligning perfectly with traditional accounts of Shaishen's lifetime. This computational validation of historical tradition demonstrates the power of modern methods to illuminate ancient records. Let's talk about metadata standards and interoperability. Creating a usable digital archive requires more than simply scanning pages. Each document must be described with metadata that captures its provenance, date, contents, and relationships to other documents. So for astrological materials, this includes astronomical data, observations, predictions, calculations, interpretive content, omens, correlations with historical events, and contextual information, the reign period, the astrologer responsible, the emperor's response. The development of metadata standards that can accommodate both Chinese traditional categories and modern astronomical requirements is an ongoing challenge. The World Digital Library's collections, which include digitized versions of key astrological texts, demonstrate both the possibilities and the limitations of current approaches. Full interoperability with astronomical databases such as the Simbad Astronomical Database or the NASA Astrophysics Data System remains a distant goal. Let's observe some case studies in digital preservation, starting with the Da Tong Kaiyuan Zan Jing digitization. It exists in multiple manuscript copies, none fully identical. A project to digitize and compare all known exemplars would enable scholars to reconstruct the textual history of this crucial work and identify interpolations and errors introduced during transmission. Such a project would require high-resolution imaging, optical character recognition trained on classical Chinese, and sophisticated collation software. Then we have the King-Bureau personnel records. Personnel administration records of the King Astronomical Bureau, preserved in the Palace Museum archives, offer unique insights into the social organization of imperial astronomy. These records trace the rise and fall of more than 30 hereditary families, documenting their appointments, salaries, promotions, and occasional demotions. Digitizing these records with full prosopographical markup would enable social network analysis of the Bureau's operation over 2 centuries. The Shui Manuscripts Project. The Endangered Archives Program's digitization of Shui manuscripts represents a different model of preservation. Working with local communities to document living traditions before they disappear, the Shui people of southwestern China maintain their own astrological traditions. Written in one of the world's few remaining hieroglyphic scripts, these manuscripts, typically anonymous and undated, preserve astrological knowledge that developed in parallel with the imperial tradition but followed its own distinct path. Moving on to computational analysis of digitized records, and specifically text mining and corpus analysis. So once digitized, the imperial astrological records become amenable to computational analysis at scales impossible for human readers. Text mining techniques can identify patterns in the correlation between celestial events and historical outcomes across millennia. So, for example, one might analyze how often solar eclipses were followed within a year by natural disasters, military defeats, or changes in imperial policy, and how these correlations varied across dynasties. Integration with astronomical databases. The observational records of the imperial astrologers contain data of genuine scientific value. Records of solar eclipses, lunar occultations, and cometary appearances could be used to refine models of Earth's rotation, the delta T parameter, and to study long-term changes in cometary orbits. Yes, the computational dating of the Shai-Shen catalog through precession analysis demonstrates the scientific potential of these records. Visualization and access. So the ultimate goal of digital archiving is not merely preservation, but access. Web-based platforms that allow scholars to browse digitized manuscripts, search their contents, and visualize their data are essential. The World Digital Library provides a model offering high-resolution images of key text alongside basic metadata. Future systems might add interactive features, overlaying historical star positions on modern sky maps, linking astrological interpretations to the historical events they reference, and enabling collaborative annotation by scholars worldwide. And we conclude with the archive as a living legacy. The digital archiving of China's imperial astrological records is not merely an act of preservation, but an act of transformation. What were once physical objects accessible only to the few become digital resources accessible to the many. What were once isolated documents become nodes in a vast network of interconnected knowledge. What were once records of the past become tools for future discovery. The work is urgent. Paper fades, ink fades, manuscripts are lost to fire and flood and neglect. Each year, more of this heritage slips beyond recovery, but the work is also inspiring. For in these records we see not only the history of Chinese astronomy, but the history of the human mind grappling with the cosmos, seeking pattern and chaos, meaning and mystery. The digital archive preserves not just data, but aspiration, the enduring human desire to read our fate in the stars. What's up? Let's get into Essay 2, size is way too big. Alright, this is computational implementation of the purple star astrology. Now if I mess up anything in this video, like words, please don't bash me, even though I barely get any views, so I don't think I will. Zai Wei Dao Shu system. This is algorithms, data structures, and modern applications, and we introduce with the purple star and its mathematical foundations. So among the many astrological systems developed in the Chinese cultural sphere, Zai Wei Dao Shu, purple star astrology, stands as one of the most sophisticated and mathematically intricate. Attributed to Shen Ziyi of the Song dynasty, though likely incorporating elements from earlier traditions, the system organizes the heavens into a complex grid of palaces, stars, and transformations that together constitute a detailed model of human destiny. Hello, Jilly. I'm on live stream on Meet Me with Peace and Love. How's it going? Unlike Western astrology, which emphasizes planetary positions within zodiac signs, or Vedic astrology, with its focus on lunar mansions, Zai Wei Dao Shu constructs its chart from a combination of date and time parameters, generating a structured array of 12 palaces representing life areas such as wealth, career, and relationships, populated by approximately 18 major stars and numerous minor stars, each modified by 4 transformational stars. The computational implementation of the system presents fascinating challenges in algorithm design, data structure optimization, and user interface development. Now, for the rest of the video, since we already know what the name is, what I'm trying to get at. Yeah. So this essay will provide a rigorous examination of the computational implementation of purple astrology, exploring the mathematical foundations of the system and the algorithms required for chart generation, the data structures appropriate for representing astrological knowledge, and the considerations involved in developing modern applications for this ancient art. We'll discuss the mathematical foundations first, starting with the sexagenary cycle as computational basis. Coming from someone that doesn't even speak Chinese, I was able to craft these with the help of DeepSeek. And I'm a pretty big fan of DeepSeek. If you've seen my other videos, don't really give a shit. If you fucking hate it and you're gonna scream and cry and shout about it because it's my life, I'm gonna post about whatever I want. So, essentially, at the foundation of purple astrology lies the sexagenary cycle. It's the system of heavenly stems and earthly branches that has structured Chinese timekeeping for more than 3 millennia. The 10 stems and 12 branches combine to form 60 unique pairs, cycling continuously through years, months, days, and hours. Now, for computational purposes, the sexagenary cycle can be represented as a modulo 60 system. Each stem branch pair receives a numeric index from 0 to 59, with well-defined conversion rules between Gregorian calendar dates and sexagenary indices. The implementation of these conversions, accounting for historical calendar variations and the transition between the Julian and Gregorian systems, represents the first layer of computational complexity. Now, the essentials of Chinese astrology, they get pretty complex pretty quick because there's just a lot of details. But that's astrology in general. Like, we're not just looking at fucking pop astrology, sun sign, Western Americanized bullshit, we're looking at how astrology is affecting us as human beings on a global scale. In fact, as a collective consciousness on a universal level, in the eternal now. And especially in the noosphere, even when humans are out of this human puppet dimension, we are going right back to the noosphere. We are going right back to hyperspace and not having a face or a body, which is Rahu and Ketu. That will be stripped away. And I'm telling you right now, you can see your karma in any form of astrology, mainly Nadi astrology, according to my YouTube guru, KRS Astrology. But he's also helped me learn Vedic astrology, and I've never in my life paid for a consultation. In fact, I learn astrology by myself with the help of DeepSeek, with the help of YouTubers like KRS Talking Astrology with Archie, even Cam White, who I have very big political opinions differences with Cameron White on YouTube. And I've still watched his videos and learned something. So, anyways, that's besides the point, because we're talking about Chinese astrology, which is very, very complex. So the 4 pillars and the purple star. So essentially a purple star chart, it will begin with the 4 pillars of the birth moment, being the year, the month, the day, and the hour, each expressed as a stem branch pair. Now from these 8 characters, the system derives the placement of the purple star, the eponymous ruler of the chart. Eponymous ruler of the chart, through a multi-step algorithm. All right, there's determining the month palace. The earthly branch of the month establishes a starting point from which the hour branch determines the final position of the month palace. Calculating the purple star position. All right, the day stem determines which of 5 boroughs governs the chart from water, wood, earth, metal, or fire borough. The day branch, converted to a numeric index, then combines with a borough to yield the position of the purple star through a table lookup or algorithmic calculation. All right, placing the remaining major stars from the purple star's position, 14 major stars are placed according to fixed patterns. Some stars move clockwise, others counterclockwise. Some follow the purple star, while others occupy fixed positions relative to it. This algorithm, while conceptually straightforward, involves numerous special cases and exceptions that must be encoded precisely. Historical variations in the system. Different schools place stars differently or apply different transformation rules, add additional layers of complexity. The 4 transformational stars. One of the most sophisticated elements of this purple star astrology is the system of 4 transformational stars. Hua Lu, transformation to prosperity. Hua Quan, transformation to authority. Hua Qi, transformation to prestige. And Hua Zhai, transformation to obstruction. Each of the major stars may, depending on the heavenly stems of the birth year and certain other factors, be transformed into one of these states, modifying its meaning. The transformations follow complex rules that vary between the schools. For example, in one common system, we see the year stem Jia transforms Lian Zhen into Hua Lu. The year system Ye transforms Tianji into Hua Quan. The year stem Bing transforms Tian Tong into Hua Qi, and so on through all 10 stems. In fact, while we're talking about Chinese astrology, I kind of wanted to make a video on the I Ching, so I'm just going to write that, make an I Ching video soon. It's going to be like a study guide type of deal, help you guys understand it. So, Computationally, this requires a mapping table from stems to transformations for each major star, a lookup structure that must be implemented with careful attention to school-specific variations. Alright? Algorithmic design for chart generation. We use input processing and validation. So the first stage of any implementation in this chart is the processing of birth data, date, time zone, and location. And the seemingly simple task involves numerous subtleties. Historical calendar conversions. These are dates before the Gregorian reform and how they require conversion from historical calendars. In China, the Gregorian calendar was adopted in 1912, but with variations during political transitions. Solar time correction. Traditional Chinese timekeeping used local solar time, with each of the 12 double hours corresponding to a specific interval of solar time. Modern implementations must correct for longitude differences and for the historical use of standard time, Beijing time, throughout China, regardless of longitude. Seasonal hour adjustments. Some schools adjust hour boundaries seasonally, requiring calculations based on the sunrise and sunset times. All right, let's look at our core algorithm architecture. The chart generation algorithm can be structured as a pipeline from birth data to the 4 pillars, to burrow calculation, to purple star position, to major stars placement, to minor stars placement, to transformational stars, palace arrangement, and then output formatting. Alright. So each stage of this pipeline operates on a shared data structure representing the chart. Efficiency considerations become important when generating charts in bulk for research purposes or when providing real-time feedback in interactive applications. Now here's how we go about handling multiple schools. One of the great challenges in implementing this is the existence of multiple, sometimes conflicting traditions. Now the main schools include the 4 transformation schools. It's emphasizing the transformational stars. The 3 combination school, focusing on star combinations and palace relationships, as well as the middle school, preserving older traditions through oral transmission. We have the southern school, popular in Taiwan and Southeast Asia. So, essentially, you can say that these schools are kind of competitive with one another, or you can just say that at the end of the day, they all come from the same foundations, kind of. So it makes sense to incorporate multiple schools and not dismiss anybody. This is a robust computational implementation should support multiple schools, either through compile time configuration for specialized applications or runtime selection for comparative study, and this requires careful abstraction of school-specific rules behind well-defined interfaces. We're moving on now. Yeah, my voice is all scratchy. I gotta stop smoking tobacco. My biggest addiction is probably the tobacco, the cannabis, and the smoking. And even before that, testosterone permanently lowered my voice, and smoking does not help. So, yeah, now you guys can see Mercury in Pisces comes to full effect, and in the next 10 years, I will probably have a very deep voice, sound like a guy maybe, or a lesbian, however you perceive it. But what's done is done. There's literally no going back. I can't just fucking cut open my throat and be like, oh, vocal cords, this is how I rearrange that. Nope, it's permanent. So, anyways, I ended the live on Meet Me just now because nobody was talking, and I was like, holy fuck. Like, this app you get like 20 people in your live stream and nobody's talking. It's just really bizarre. Or some people will say hi and then they'll just stop talking. But anyways, back to what I was saying, data structures for astrological knowledge, representing stars and their attributes. So each star in the Zai-Wi-Dou-Shu system has numerous attributes that must be encoded, such as basic properties being the name, element, yin-yang nature, and inauspiciousness rating. Palin's preference. So the palace preferences, stars manifest differently in different palaces. Combination effects, certain star pairs or groups have emergent meanings. Transformation potential, which transformations apply and with what effects. And mutual interaction rules, how stars influence each other when occupying the same palace. And a well-designed data structure for stars might use a combination of fixed fields for stable attributes and rule-based systems for context-dependent effects. Object-oriented design with inheritance can capture relationships between major and minor stars. Palace relationships and interconnections. The 12 palaces of a Zai-Wi-Dou-Shu chart are not independent, but interconnected through multiple systems. So we have original positions being the fixed palace definitions, life, wealth, career, etc. We have opposition palaces. Each palace has an opposite palace with special significance, as well as 3 combinations. Certain palace triads share thematic connections. Great star patterns. Some star configurations create patterns across multiple palaces. Representing these relationships efficiently in memory enables rapid traversal for interpretation algorithms. Moving on to rule-based interpretation engines. Beyond chart generation, some computational systems attempt to automate interpretation, and this requires encoding vast amounts of astrological knowledge in machine-readable form, and approaches include the following. Decision trees for straightforward rules, for example, if star X and palace Y, then meaning Z. Production rules for more complex conditional interpretations. Bayesian networks for probabilistic interpretations that combine multiple factors. And neural networks for pattern recognition based on large data sets of example charts. The development of interpretation engines remains challenging due to the context-sensitive nature of astrological judgment and the difficulty of formalizing intuitive knowledge. Now we observe our modern applications and user interfaces, desktop and mobile applications. So contemporary software, it ranges from simple chart generators to comprehensive analysis systems, and its features typically include chart display, visual representation of the palace grid with stars, annual and monthly forecast, projection of current transits onto the natal chart, compatibility analysis, comparison of multiple charts for relationship assessment and reference integration, built-in access to star meanings and interpretation guidelines. So user interface design must balance completeness, showing all relevant information with clarity, preventing overwhelming the user. Effective designs use progressive disclosure, revealing details only when requested. Now we look at web-based platforms. So web-based platforms offer advantages in accessibility and cross-platform compatibility. Modern web technologies like HTML5, Canvas, SVG, WebGL enable sophisticated chart visualizations without client-side installation. Cloud-based processing can handle computationally intensive operations. And now we look at research applications. For scholars studying the system, computational implementations enable quantitative research impossible with manual methods, and possibilities include the following. Statistical analysis correlating chart features with life outcomes in large data sets. Historical evolution tracking comparing rule sets across different schools and periods. Algorithm optimization refining calculation methods through comparison with historical examples. The Medium article by Gu Hang, I think that's how we say it, Gao Hang, Gao, Gu, I think it's Gao. Exploring correlations between the 12 Changsheng Yun and national economic data suggests the potential of such approaches, while also highlighting the methodological challenges. All right, and we conclude with the algorithm and the art. The computational implementation of Zaiwei Daoshu transforms an ancient art into a modern technology. Yet this transformation raises profound questions. Can an algorithm capture the intuitive judgments of a skilled astrologer? Can rule-based systems replace the subtle pattern recognition developed through decades of practice? And what is lost and what gained when we encode celestial wisdom in software? The answers to these questions lie not in choosing between computation and intuition, but in finding their integration. Algorithms can handle the tedious calculations that distract from interpretation. They can organize information for rapid access. They can explore patterns too vast for human comprehension, but the ultimate act of astrological judgment, the synthesis of multiple factors into a coherent narrative, the compassionate application of celestial knowledge to human concerns, remains and may always remain a human art. Moving on to Essay 3, which is the integration of the 28 lunar mansions U with Western and Vedic lunar mansion systems, a comparative and syncretic analysis. And we'll begin with the moon's many mansions. Across the astrological traditions of Eurasia, the moon holds a privileged position. Its monthly journey through the stars provides the most accessible measure of celestial time, and its phases mark the rhythms of human experience. It is therefore not surprising that diverse cultures develop sophisticated systems for tracking and interpreting lunar motion. The Chinese 28 lunar mansions, also known as Urshaiba's Yu, the Vedic 27 or 28 nakshatras, and the Arabic 28th Manazil al-Qamar, represent independent but related developments of this common impulse. In this essay, we undertake a rigorous comparative analysis of these lunar mansion systems, with particular emphasis on the Chinese Yu and their relationship to the Vedic nakshatras. We explore the historical connections between these traditions, the structural differences that distinguish them, the points of correspondence that enable integration, and the practical applications of a syncretic approach that draws on multiple systems. So in doing so, we illuminate both the unique genius of each tradition and the deeper patterns that unite them. The Chinese Yu system, structure, and development. We'll talk about the origins and antiquity. So the Chinese lunar mansion system is of remarkable antiquity, as Joseph Needham and Wang Ling documented in their Magisterial Science and Civilization in China. The names of all 28 Zhu appear on the lid of a lacquer box found in a tomb dated to 433 BCE, demonstrating that the system was already fully developed by the mid-4th century BCE. This predates any surviving evidence for the fully developed Indian nakshatra system, though the question of priority and possible transmission remains contentious. The term Zhu is significant. It means lodging or place to stay overnight, conceptualizing the mansions as stations where the moon rests during its monthly journey. This agricultural metaphor reflects the practical origins of the system in timekeeping and calendar regulation. Unlike the Western zodiac, which tracks the sun's annual path, the Zhu system follows the moon's sidereal motion, dividing the celestial equator into 28 sectors of varying width. Here's our astronomical basis and measurement. So we know Chinese astronomers measured the positions of stars using a system of 365 and 1/4 degrees to a circle, corresponding to the length of the tropical year. The Zhu are not of equal width, but were defined by the right ascension difference between a determinative star, Juxing, and the next. This practical, observation-based approach contrasts with the more theoretical equal division systems developed elsewhere. The 28 Zhu were organized into the 28 Zhu were organized into 4 groups of 7, each associated with one of the 4 symbols, being the azure dragon of the east, the vermilion bird of the south, the white tiger of the west, and the black tortoise of the north. This cosmological framework integrated the lunar mansions into a comprehensive system of symbolic correspondences that extended to directions, seasons, elements, and human affairs. Onto the Zyu in Chinese astrology and culture. So in Chinese astrology, the Zyu function both as divisions of the sky and as astrological factors in their own right. Each Zyu had its own governing star, or stars, its own mythological associations, and its own omens and portents. The Da Tang Kaiyuan Zanjing preserves extensive material on the interpretation of Zyu, including their correlations with terrestrial regions and their significance for imperial astrology. The Zyu also played a crucial role in calendrical calculation. The position of the moon in the Zyu at any given time could be calculated from astronomical tables, enabling the prediction of lunar motion essential for calendar regulation. The Tang Dynasty monk and astronomer Yai Xing, 673 through 727, famously created two sets of Zyu measurements, one for the celestial equator and one for the ecliptic, reflecting the influence of Indian astronomy while maintaining Chinese observational foundations. All right? So moving on to the Vedic nakshatra system, the parallels and the differences. This is the structure and the development of that. All right. The Vedic nakshatra system, like its Chinese counterpart, originated in the observation of the moon's motion. A complete list of 28 nakshatras appears in the Atharva Veda, and the system is elaborated in the Satapatha Brahmana and the Vedanga Jyotisa. The classical Indian tradition eventually standardized on 27 nakshatras of equal 13 degrees 20 arc, excluding Abhijit, though 28 nakshatra systems persisted in some contexts. The Sanskrit term nakshatra originally meant simply star, but came to refer specifically to the lunar mansions. The nakshatras are personified in Hindu mythology as the 27 or 28 daughters of Daksha, all married to the moon god Chandra, a mythological encoding of astronomical observation. Measurement and calculation. Unlike the Chinese Zyu, which were measured by right ascension along the celestial equator, the classical Indian nakshatras came to be measured along the ecliptic. Each nakshatra was divided into 4 padas, quarters of 3 degrees 20, creating 108 divisions that correspond to the 108 names of the divine in Hindu tradition. This equal division approach, developed through the influence of Hellenistic astronomy, contrasts with the variable width system of Chinese tradition. The nakshatras were associated with determinative stars, yogataras, but as David Pingree demonstrated, these associations varied across texts and periods, making precise identification challenging. The starting point of the nakshatra series also shifted over time due to precession. Early texts began with Kritika, while later traditions began with Asvini, reflecting the gradual westward movement of the vernal equinox. Let's talk about the problem of Abhijit. So the status of Abhijit, the 28th nakshatra, illustrates the fluidity of these systems. In the 28 nakshatra model, Abhijit occupies a position between Uttarashadha and Sravana. Some texts treat it as a full nakshatra, others subsume it under Uttarashadha or Sravana. Still others acknowledge its existence but exclude it from regular calculations. The Chinese system, by contrast, consistently maintains 28 Zyu with no equivalent of the Abhijit problem. Historical encounters, transmission, and hybridization. The Sui Tang period is crucible. The Sui and Tang dynasties, 581 through 907, witnessed intensive cultural exchange between China and India, including the transmission of astrological knowledge. Buddhist scriptures brought to China contained extensive material on nakshatras, and Indian astronomers such as Gautama Siddha served at the Tang court, contributing to the compilation of the Da Tang Kaiyuan Zan Jing. Yet this transmission was not simple copying. As the scholar Kotik has demonstrated, Chinese Buddhists of the Sui and Tang period struggled to understand the Indian nakshatra system, and even when faced with the opportunity to adopt an orthodox Indian model, shifted toward a hybridized system that combined elements of both traditions. Moving on to the case of Zhai Zhang, the Sanlun monk. Zhai Zhang from 549 through 623 provides a revealing example. In his commentary on the Humane King Sutra, Zhai discusses the 28 lunar stations, listing them in the traditional Chinese order Xiao, Kang, Di, Fang, Xin, Hui, Qi for the Eastern Quarter. He demonstrates awareness of foreign explanations, mentioning that in foreign countries it is called the astrologer's star, but its primary framework remains Chinese. This pattern persisted through the Tang, while some monks such as Yaizing developed sophisticated synthesis of Chinese and Indian astronomy. Most Buddhists continued to operate within native Chinese frameworks, adapting Indian elements selectively rather than wholesale. Moving on to the Ziyu Yao Jing and syncretic systems. So the Ziyu Yao Jing, Sutra of Lunar Mansions and Planets, translated by Amogavaja in the 8th century, represents a different approach, the presentation of Indian astrological material in Chinese translation, using existing Chinese terminology. As the scholar Yeno Michio has shown, this created a hybrid system in which Indian nakshatras were mapped onto Chinese Yu, with adjustments to account for the different numbers of divisions. For example, the text assigns 4 padas of the ecliptic to each of 12 zodiac signs, 108 padas total, and then distributes these among 27 nakshatras, 4 padas each. The Chinese Yu, with their variable widths, are then correlated with this equal division system, a complex mapping that reveals both the translator's understanding of Indian astronomy and the persistence of Chinese frameworks. Onto our comparative analysis, points of correspondence and divergence. Here's the correlation problem. Mapping Chinese Yu onto Indian nakshatras is not straightforward. Only a few stars mutually correspond, as Japanese scholars such as Kakusho recognize in their annotations to the Ziyu Yao Jing. The determinative stars of the two systems often differ, and the boundaries of the divisions rarely align. Nevertheless, traditional correlations exist. The following table presents the standard correspondences as documented in the Ziyu Yao Jing and other sources. You guys can bear with me for just one moment. I'm going to get on my laptop for just a sec. I need to look something up. Make sure I got this. Alright. Just one moment, guys. I can't pause the screen recording and have it still pick up, so bear with me. My computer's really slow. Okay. My glasses are pretty dirty. I'm gonna have to wash these. Yeah, I cannot find the video I'm looking for. Alright, that's fine. So, moving on. I'm going to show you this table. So as we can see on screen, it's a pretty long one. I'm not going to attempt to say every single name on here. This is the Chinese Yu, Sanskrit Nakshatra, Sanskrit month deity. So we see if you guys want to take a look at it, take a screenshot, take your notes to understand this. Because we're going to talk about the structural differences too. Alright, I need to... Bear with me, everybody. So, beyond the correlation of individual mansions, deeper structural differences distinguish the systems. We look at our coordinate system. Chinese Yu are based on the celestial equator, Indian nakshatras in their developed form on the ecliptic. This fundamental difference affects everything from measurement to interpretation. Number of divisions. The Chinese consistently maintain 28, and the Indian tradition vacillates between 27 and 28, with Abhijit a persistent complication. Equal versus variable width. Classical nakshatras are equal 13 degrees 20 each. Chinese Yu vary in width, reflecting their origin and observation rather than theoretical division. In organizational framework, Chinese Yu are grouped by 4 directions and 4 symbols, Indian nakshatras by 3 groups of 9, or other schemas associated with deities and qualities. Astrological application. In Chinese astrology, the Yu function alongside many other factors. In Vedic astrology, the nakshatras are fundamental to virtually all calculations, from the timing of events to compatibility assessment. Toward integration principles and practices, respecting distinctive genius. Ooh. The messiest astrology YouTuber. Oh my gosh. Next videos, I'm going to try and use the face cam. So any integration of these systems must begin by respecting their distinctive genius, right? The Chinese Yu system excels in its observational precision, its integration with calendar science, and its cosmological framework. The Vedic nakshatra system excels in its psychological depth, its mythological richness, and systematic application to human affairs. Neither is reducible to the other. So, here's our comparative interpretation. For the practicing astrologer, comparative interpretation involves holding both systems in mind and allowing each to illuminate different facets of a situation. The Chinese Yu might reveal the cosmic context of an event, its relationship to the 4 directions, its seasonal significance, its place in the larger pattern of sky and earth. The Vedic nakshatra might reveal its psychological meaning, the deity whose influence colors the moment, the karmic quality of the time, the characterological implications of a birth. So, moving on to technical integration. On a technical level, integration requires establishing conversion methods between the systems given the different coordinate bases. This is not simple. One approach works through the common framework of tropical longitude. First, convert the ZU position to an approximate ecliptic longitude accounting for the ZU's equatorial nature, then locate the corresponding nakshatra by its ecliptic range. More sophisticated approaches might work with the actual determinative stars, comparing their positions in both systems and allowing for the differences in reference frames. This requires accurate ephemerides and careful treatment of precession and proper motion. Alrighty. The hybrid systems of history. We need not invert integration from scratch. History provides models. The Tang Dynasty hybrid systems documented by Kotick demonstrate how Chinese and Indian lunar mansion traditions were combined in practice. The Xiao Yao Jing and related texts show that syncretism, far from being a modern invention, has deep historical roots. Our task is not to create something new, but to understand and extend what our predecessors began. And we conclude with the mansions as a meeting place. The lunar mansions, whether Chinese Yu or Indian Nakshatra, represent one of humanity's most enduring attempts to map the cosmic order. That different cultures develop different maps is not a problem to be solved, but a richness to be appreciated. Each system reveals aspects of the lunar mystery that others obscure. Each offers insights that complement and deepen the others. In bringing these traditions into dialogue, we do not seek to reduce them to a single system, but to create a space of mutual illumination. The moon that journeys through the Zeu is the same moon that traverses the nakshatras. The stars that mark our path are the same stars, however differently we may group and name them. In the mansions, east and west, north and south, meet under the same sky. Essay 4 is research into the correlation between Jaizi sexagenary cycle transitions and geopolitical realignments, a quantitative and qualitative analysis. And we introduce with time as a cycle and structure. The Chinese sexagenary cycle, also known as Liu Shijizi, is one of the oldest continuously used timekeeping systems in human history. For more than 3 millennia, the Chinese have marked years, months, days, and hours by the combination of 10 heavenly stems and 12 earthly branches, creating a cycle of 60 unique pairs that repeats indefinitely. This system is not merely a method of counting, but a profound philosophical framework that understands time as cyclical rather than linear, each period bearing the qualitative characteristics of its stem branch pair. In this essay, explore the frontier of astrological research, the correlation between transitions in the sexagenary cycle and geopolitical realignments, building on preliminary studies documented in sources such as the Annals of Celestial Strategy. Here referenced through the work of Gao Huang on Medium, we examine the theoretical foundations for such correlations, the methodological challenges in establishing them, the evidence from historical case studies, and the implications for understanding both Chinese astrology and world history. Onto the theoretical foundations. Time is qualitative, the philosophy of cyclical time. Video on Google Docs. It's having some issues with the other app. It's just switch back and forth. Real Gen Z shit. But we left off talking about our theoretical foundations, and time is qualitative, the philosophy of cyclical time. So the sexagenary cycle embodies a distinctive philosophy of time. Unlike the linear time of Western modernity, time is an arrow progressing endlessly toward an unknown future. Chinese cyclical time is a wheel, returning eternally to familiar points. Yet this is not mere repetition. Each return brings a new instantiation of the same qualitative pattern, shaped by the accumulated karma of previous cycles. The stems and branches are not arbitrary labels, but carriers of specific qualities. The 10 stems correlate with the 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, water, in their yin and yang manifestations. The 12 branches correlate with animals, directions, seasons, and planetary influences. So when a stem and branch combine, they create a unique qualitative field that colors the entire period, year, month, day, or hour that they designate. The 12 Chang Shang Yun as temporal structure. Within the framework of the sexagenary cycle, the 12 Chang Sheng Yun, 12 stages of life energy, provide a more granular structure for understanding temporal quality. These 12 stages: birth, bath, adult, strong, peak, fading, sickness, death, tomb, Jedi, fetus, and growth, describe the waxing and waning of energy through any complete cycle. In the interpretation of national destinies, these stages are applied to the 10-year periods, Da Yun, that structure the life of both individuals and polities. As Gu Heng explains, the 12 Shangxing Yuns represent the 12 different states associated with the 5 elements. They describe the entire lifespan of an individual from birth to old age. They can also be used as a metaphor for the entire process of occurrence, development, decline, and extinction of all things in the world. So the stages are classified into 4 categories: 4 prosperous fortunes, birth, adult, strong, peak; 4 unfavorable fortunes, bath, death, tomb, Jedi; 4 plain fortunes, fading, sickness, fetus, growth. This classification provides a framework for assessing the quality of any given period, and by extension for predicting the kinds of events likely to occur within it. On to planetary underpinnings. The sexagenary cycle is not merely a human convention, but is believed to reflect deeper cosmic rhythms. Gu Heng suggests that this force may be related to the displacement of Venus, Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, and Saturn in the solar system, and this is because the 60-year cycle of the sexagenary cycle is the least common multiple of multiple time periods. Indeed, the synodic periods of the visible planets combine to produce cycles that approximate the sexagenary period. Jupiter's approximately 12-year orbit gives it 12 earthly branches. Saturn's approximately 30-year orbit combines with Jupiter's to produce the 60-year conjunction cycle that underlies much of mundane astrology worldwide. The sexagenary cycle may thus be understood as an indigenous Chinese encoding of planetary rhythms. On to methodological challenges in correlation research, defining variables. So rigorous research into correlations between Jayezi transitions and geopolitical realignments requires clear definition of variables. The independent variable is the stem branch pair of a given year or period, often with additional specification of the Chang Sheng Yun stage. The dependent variable, geopolitical realignment, requires operationalization. Now, what counts as a realignment? Possible definitions include regime changes, overthrow of governments, dynastic transitions, war outbreaks, initiation of significant conflicts, treaty signings, major international agreements that reshape alliances, economic shifts, significant changes in growth patterns, trade relationships, and technological transformations, breakthroughs that alter power balances. So each definition captures different aspects of geopolitical change, and research must be explicit about what is being used. Moving on to establishing baselines. To determine whether Jayezi transitions correlate with realignments, we must establish baseline expectations. How often do realignments occur in random years? What is their distribution across the 60-year cycle? Without such baselines, apparent correlations may be illusory. The problem is complicated by the cyclical nature of the independent variable. If realignments cluster in certain years, we must ask whether this clustering exceeds what chance would predict, given the finite number of observations and the multiple hypothesis testing inherent in examining all 60 stem branch combinations. The challenge of periodization. Chinese history itself is often periodized in terms of the sexagenary cycle, creating a potential circularity in research. If historians have traditionally described certain periods in terms of their Jayezi designations, and if these descriptions influence our selection of significant events, then apparent correlations may reflect historiographical convention rather than objective pattern, and research must therefore draw on multiple sources and periods, including non-Chinese contexts where the sexagenary cycle is not part of the historiographical tradition. The application of the framework to South Korea, Germany, and other countries as attempted by Gao Heng represents an effort to overcome this limitation. On to case studies in Jayazzi correlations, the Korean miracle on the Han River, the economic transformation of South Korea from 1953 to 1996, known as the Miracle on the Han River, provides a test case for Jayazzi-based analysis. Gao Heng examines this period using per capita GDP data and overlays the 12 Changsheng Yun stages derived from the sexagenary cycle. The analysis highlights key transition points from 1960. South Korea's per capita GDP was $82, less than one-third of North Korea's $253. 1970, South Korea's per capita GDP reached $410, surpassing North Korea's $400. And 1978 continued growth through the peak stage of the cycle. The study claims correlation between periods of prosperous fortunes, birth, adult, strong, peak, and accelerated economic growth, while unfavorable fortunes, death, tomb, Jedi, correlate with stagnation or crises. However, the presentation is preliminary, and the author acknowledges the need for more rigorous statistical testing. On to the 2003 through 2004 Jayazzi transition. The transition from the Gui year to the Jiashen year in 2003 through 2004 offers another case. According to traditional interpretation, the shift from water, Gui, to wood, Jia, and from sheep, Wei, to monkey, Shen, marked a significant change in global energy. The period saw the Iraq War, the expansion of the European Union, and the beginning of the commodity supercycle that would reshape global trade. Whether these events could be attributed to the Jayazzi transition or would have occurred regardless is impossible to determine with certainty, but the temporal conjunction is striking and invites further investigation. The 2020 through 2021 transition. The transition from the Gangxi year to the Zhenqiao year in 2020 through 2021 coincided with one of the most disruptive periods in recent global history. The Zhengzi year is traditionally considered inauspicious in Chinese culture. The Opium War began in a Gangxi year, as did the Boxer Rebellion. The COVID-19 pandemic, which emerged in late 2019 and exploded in early 2020, seemed to confirm this pattern. The subsequent Zhenqiao year, associated with metal Zhen and ox Chu, was expected to bring stabilization and reconstruction, a pattern that arguably manifested in the rapid development and distribution of vaccines and the beginnings of economic recovery. Again, correlation does not prove causation, but the pattern aligns with traditional expectations. Toward a research program. Data collection and database construction. It's a systematic research program on Jayazzi geopolitics correlations would require a chronological database, a comprehensive list of significant geopolitical events with precise dates covering at minimum several complete sexagenary cycles, ideally many centuries. Jayazzi annotation, each event annotated with its stem branch year, month, and day, plus Chang Sheng Yang calculations for the relevant periods. Statistical analysis testing for significant clustering of events, in particular stem branch combinations or Chang Sheng Yang stages. Control cases, comparison with random distributions and with other cyclical systems, solar cycles, planetary cycles to ensure specificity. Multivariate approaches. So real-world causation is complex, and no single factor, celestial or otherwise, determines historical outcomes. A mature research program would integrate Jayazzi analysis with other factors. Planetary configurations, transits, conjunctions, and ingresses of the outer planets. Economic cycles, quantitative waves, business cycles, technological innovation waves, political cycles, generational shifts, institutional life cycles, and hegemonic transitions. The goal would be not to replace existing historical explanations, but to add an astrological dimension to our understanding of complex causality. question of the mechanism. So if correlations exist, what is the mechanism? Gao Hang speculates that besides gravity, human activities are also influenced by some potential force related to planetary positions. This formulation, while vague, points toward a crucial question: how might celestial configurations influence collective human behavior? And possible mechanisms include geophysical effects, planetary alignments affecting Earth's magnetic field, solar wind, or other physical factors that influence human biology, collective psychological effects, celestial patterns triggering archetypal responses, and the collective unconscious synchronicity, a causal meaningful coincidence as theorized by Jung and Pauli, no mechanism, correlation without causation, reflecting the limits of human pattern seeking. And each possibility has different implications for research and interpretation. Now we conclude with pattern and meaning in history. The search for correlations between Jayasi transitions and geopolitical realignments represents an attempt to find pattern and meaning in the apparent chaos of history. It is continuous with the oldest impulses of Chinese civilization, the conviction that heaven and earth are connected, that cosmic rhythms manifest in human affairs, that time is not empty but full of qualitative significance. The research to date, while suggestive, remains preliminary. Gao Heng candidly acknowledges the limitations of the research and emphasizes the need for further in-depth study, yet the very existence of such research and the growing interest in quantitative approaches to astrological questions points toward a future in which ancient wisdom and modern methods may enter into productive dialogue. Whether the correlations prove statistically significant or not, the effort to find them reveals something important about human cognition. Our irrepressible drive to find pattern, to connect phenomena, to read meaning into the world. The sexagenary cycle, with its elegant structure and its millennia of application, offers a framework for this meaning-making that is at once profoundly cultural and potentially universal. In studying its correlations with history, we study not only the stars, but ourselves. Now, with peace and love, thank you for watching this video, commenting, sharing, and we'll see you in the next one, teaching you more astrology.